Hello everyone, now you will hear a brief summary of the movie Robin Hood. Enjoy watching. Nottingham, England, year 1199. Lord Locksley's estate was robbed by forest bandits, who took all the seed grain. Now the peasants face starvation. Robert Locksley himself, along with King Richard I, is returning home after a 10-year crusade. On the way back, the English capture French castles, and this one was supposed to be the last. In the army, an expert archer named Robin Longstride serves as a bowman. Richard the Lionheart rides ahead of his troops. The French pour boiling oil on their enemies and bombard them with arrows, but then the main gates were set on fire. They just have to wait until they completely burn down and prevent the French from extinguishing them. Meanwhile, the king's younger brother John sent his wife out of the room to entertain himself in bed with the French Countess Isabella. The King of France is planning to bring his niece home. Now he has a reason to attack England. Richard has no heirs, so he will become king, and Isabella will be the Queen of England when he annuls his first brother. Richard is waiting for the gates to burn down. The assault is in the morning, and then it's possible to go home. The king does not like his brother and plans to imprison him. The king hid his face under a hood to secretly watch what his soldiers were doing. A fight had just broken out between Robin and Little John, and Richard got kicked in the head with both feet. The king was not offended and wanted to know what the brave warrior thought about their campaign. Robin replied that God turned away from them when they herded together 2,500 Muslims and carried out a massacre. They ruthlessly executed both women and children. For Robin's honesty, all his friends suffered. They were put in stocks. Robin vowed that from now on, he would serve no one. That same morning, the English Lord Sir Godfrey met with the French King Philip. He offered the traitor a generous reward for killing the king. With John on the throne, capturing England would be much easier. In the morning, the English attacked the castle again. An enemy crossbowman made an accurate shot, and the bolt hit the king right in the neck. Richard received a fatal wound and died a few seconds later. Upon learning that the king had died, Robin and his comrades decided to flee. Godfrey ambushed and slaughtered all the English knights. Among them was supposed to be Richard the Lionheart. Godfrey was pleasantly surprised to learn that someone had beaten him to it. The severely wounded Robert Locksley revealed that they were taking his crown to London. The horse with the crown had just galloped into the forest. Robin's band stopped it and defeated the French who were pursuing the steed. Then the English found the rest of the enemies and shot them with bows. Robin's arrow reached Godfrey, but only wounded his face. As he was dying, Robert Locksley asked Robin to take his sword to Nottingham and deliver it to his father. Robin found the map. The group had to ride to the coast, board a ship, and deliver the crown to the tower. That's how Simple's archers will return home. They will put on armor and pretend to be knights, and in England they will start a new life. Marion Locksley hopes that the church will share grain with the destitute people, but the previous pastor only laughed and advised the peasants to pray for their sins. In his place arrived the good-natured Friar Tuck. Robin's band rode up to the ship. The archer introduced himself as Sir Robert Locksley and reported the king's death. The satisfied deserters got drunk and celebrated their return home. They planned to escape as soon as they reached the English shore, but overslept and woke up when the ship was already sailing on the Thames. The Queen came out to meet her son. No one yet knows that King Richard I was killed. The simple warrior Robin bowed and handed the crown to the Queen. The woman immediately placed it on her younger son's head. "The king is dead. Long live the king." The subjects knelt before the new king. Although the night brought sad news, John decided to reward the impostor with his ring. However, he immediately changed his mind when he remembered that his father, Walter Locksley, owed taxes to the crown. John greeted his best friend Godfrey and noticed his wound. The traitor ordered his man to finish off Robin. Marion plowed the field, but all they can count on is nettle and dandelions. The sheriff rode here to collect taxes, but Marion has nothing to give. First, they were stripped to pay for military campaigns, and the rest was taken by the church. The scoundrel would like to marry Marion. Her husband has been away on campaigns for 10 years. He is most likely already dead. And he is here and can provide protection. Robin divided the spoils and suggested that his companions scatter. He would go to Nottingham to fulfill the promise and deliver the sword. The kingdom's treasury is depleted. John ordered the army to be disbanded and taxes raised. William Marshal suggested taking loans from a merchant instead. But the king believes that the northern barons are lying about their dire situation. More gold can be squeezed from them. Geoffrey immediately offered his services. The barons will have to choose either gold or the grave. The English shedding English blood, loyal subjects have nothing to fear. John dismissed the marshal to keep him from interfering with his lawlessness in the kingdom. Godfrey went to replenish the treasury, using the most cruel and ruthless methods. The comrades followed Robin and rode to Nottingham. The first person they met was Friar Tuck, who had also taken up beekeeping, and he also sells mead. Robin mistook Marion for a peasant and asked where he could find Walter Locksley. He wants to give him Robert's sword. That's how the woman found out that her husband had been killed. Soon, Robin realized that he was talking to the mistress of the estate. The archer handed the sword to Walter. He had forbidden Robert from going on the campaign. Now the prodigal son will not even be able to ask his father for forgiveness. The blind old man invited the guest to dine with him. Marion had to help Robin undress, as he couldn't remove the chainmail himself. The woman doesn't like their guest. She thinks he's a swindler. However, clever Walter suggested that Robin pretend to be his son and Marion's husband. The fact is, after his death, Marion will end up on the street, as he has no other heirs. The estate will be taken away immediately. To deceive the servants, Robin will need to sleep in Marion's bedroom. The archer settled on the floor by the fireplace next to the little dog. 200 French soldiers landed on the coast of England. They were met by Godfrey. Thanks to his spy, William Marshal learned about this. Walter's spirits lifted. Robin inspires trust in the old man. From Marion, the guests learned that they have no livestock, and hunting is only allowed for rabbits. All deer are considered the property of the king. Apparently, no one remembers what Robert looked like, because everyone greets Robin as their lord. His battle comrades now also have to address him as Sir. The bishop ordered to take away the last grain reserves from the peasants. Robin spoke with a knock. He told them the route along which the seized grain would be transported. Robin's squad set up an ambush on the road and took out the guards. Thus, the grain was returned to the Locks estate. That same morning, they sowed the prepared fields, and when the sprouts appear, Brother Tuck will declare it a miracle. Thus, Robin earned Marion's favor. Using French troops, Godfrey began to plunder the estates of the northern barons. In doing so, he does it on behalf of John. The thugs kill residents and even rob churches. The marshal spoke about the conspiracy of the king's mother. When the northern barons rise against the Caucasus, the shores will remain open for invasion. The queen mother decided to influence her son through Isabella. If she wishes to become queen, she must save John and England. The young king became furious upon learning of Godfrey's betrayal. The sheriff received notice that the tax collectors will soon arrive in Nottingham. The scoundrel will be glad to serve Godfrey, but he might be thwarted by the crusader Robert Locksley, who has returned from the war. Robin and Marion are spending more and more time together. Feelings have started to develop between them. John turned to the marshal for help. The knight advised the king to meet with the barons and come. A fool thinks that all the militia should be impaled, since they went against the crown. Godfrey found out where the man who took his crown is hiding. He ordered Nottingham to be burned along with its inhabitants. The traitor also sent a letter to Philip. It's time to attack England. Walter knew Robin's father. He was executed for drafting a Charter of Liberties. The document was supposed to limit the king's power and secure the rights of free citizens. A messenger rode in and reported a baron rebellion. Robert Locksley was offered to join them. A large army gathered in the town of Barnesdale. The Marshal is trying to dissuade the barons from going to war with the king. An external enemy threatens them. Suddenly, the king himself arrived. He realized the seriousness of the situation. But now there needs to be some agreement with the rebellious barons. Here is where Robin's father was executed. He interrupted a dispute between the king and the barons and told John that he should grant freedom to his subjects. The king will gain not only the loyalty, but also the love of the people. John promised that such a charter would appear, but first they need to repel the French attack. At the same time, Nottingham was attacked by Godfrey with his thugs. The sheriff gladly welcomed the invaders, but his house was also burned. Godfrey went out to Walter and learned that before him stood the murderer of his son. The scoundrel mocked the blind old man for a while until he wounded him. Then Godfrey immediately killed Walter. Friar Tuck, the beekeeper, threw a couple of beehives at the French and locked the door. Assistant about say, Godfrey shoved Marion into the house and suggested she relax. Marion took out a hidden knife and stabbed the bold killer. The forest bandits helped her get outside. At the same time, all the residents were herded into a big house and set it on fire. Robin came to the rescue. Together with a small army, he rushed into the village and began cutting down the enemies. Marion, along with Tuck, saved the peasants. The remaining French had to surrender. Marion learned of Walter's death and gave his sword to Robin. Once again, she has to see a man off to war. As he left, Robin confessed his love to the woman. The French fleet is approaching the shores of England. Philip saw the fires lit by Godfrey and ordered the troops to prepare for landing. At the same time, John rode ahead of the English army. After all, this is his first war. The enemy ships docked at the shore. Seeing how many French were ahead, the king got scared and turned to Robin for advice. He immediately took command. Philip and Godfrey did not expect the English to unite and gather a full army. Archers lined up on the cliff and made the first volley. The French infantry noticeably thinned. Even Marion rode in to fight the enemy, accompanied by forest bandits. Robin is successfully leading the cavalry. Inspired by the successes of his army, the young king also rushed into battle. Marion saw the bold traitor and knocked him off his horse, but she also ended up on the ground. Robin saved her at the last moment. However, during the battle, two ships almost crushed the man. Godfrey took advantage of this and tried to escape on horseback. However, Robin released an arrow that hit the target and pierced the scoundrel's neck through and through. At the last moment, the archer managed to save Marion, who was being dragged underwater by heavy armor. Philip realized he miscalculated and ordered a retreat. John was delighted, but saw that the army was celebrating not him, but the commoner Robin. When the threat subsided, the deceitful king refused to sign the charter. He burned it in front of the barons. John called Robin a bandit and an impostor, deserving only execution. He will be pursued until his death. The sheriff of Nottingham declared that from now on, Robin Hood is an enemy of the crown, as are all his friends. But the hero was not afraid. Together with Marion, he went to live in Sherwood Forest and became the leader of young outlaws.